I'm stood outside the very popular James Barber Tobacconist, and I'm going to speak to James himself. Let's go. I am now stood with the very popular James from James Barber Tobacconist, and we're going to find out a little bit more about him and his new developments, well, not so new, but new since I have last been here, in his shop. So, hi James, thanks for having me today.
Morning, Colin.
How did you end up in this crazy world that is cigars?
A funny one really, because when I left school, even though I'd got 3 elder siblings, nobody had come into the business. Now the business had gone through 3 generations. Mm-hmm. But believe it or not, with a name like Barber, I decided I wanted to be a hairstylist.
Of course.
So I went and got a job just before I left school at Vidal Sassoon's, and I was about to start the job, and my father said, why don't you come into business? And I thought, oh, it's a dying business, you know, should I do it? And he said, you can't let the name die, you know, it's after all these years. So I gave up my job at Vidal Sassoon's and came into the tobacco business, basically.
So had you already trained basically to be a barber then?
No, I was fascinated. I was always a bit sort of arty at school.
Yeah.
And I always thought hairdressing was a bit of an art form. And I used to have wacky haircuts myself,
That's
you know.
Cool.
And I used to go to Vidal Sassoon's to get my haircut. And so no training.
No.
But I'll never forget, they offered me £10 a week and lunch and vouchers, so...
I bet that was quite alright at the time, like, yeah, this sounds alright, learning to cut hair. Okay, so you went into the business that your dad had sort of started. When is it in that point that you decided you actually really like the business? Because obviously it's one thing having a job, but, you know, you are now a cigar aficionado, so at what point was that when it changed?
Well, you know, business was going down, and... every shop around me was cut price cigarettes, big yellow posters in the window, you know, 2p off a pack, etc. And I lost my way. I thought, I've got to compete with all these people. And I did compete, and I was quite successful. But then one day I went into a tobacconist in Stratford, Lands, and it was a beautiful shop. And it even had carpet on the floor, which, you know, for a tobacconist in those days was quite rare. It got these lovely sliding pipe boards and a few cigars on display, but I was so impressed. I went back to the shop, tore all the posters down and said, I'm going to be a proper tobacconist again.
Wow.
And after a while I built only the second walk-in humidor outside London. I believe Aston's in Manchester were the first. And I built a walk-in cigar humidor. And in those days it was mainly Cuban cigars. And it became really successful. I was then lucky enough to go to Cuba in 1992. And that was before there was any tourism in Cuba, to see how cigars were made, and it just fascinated me from that day on, and so I really wanted to specialise in cigars from that day. Talking
of Cuba, you've got a poster in here with that lady on from Cuba. I think she's in Havana, and I've seen her face everywhere. It's crazy. She's literally like a celebrity now in the cigar world.
Yeah. Okay,
so moving forward now to 2026. In the last few years, you've completely changed your store around, particularly since I've been here. This whole room now, I'll obviously show everyone on camera, is full to the brim of cigars. At what point did you decide, you know, I'm now going to expand? Because you did just have your cigars on the lower floor in there, didn't you? And now you've got the whole room full.
I'd say it was the start of COVID, really. We saw a big cigar boom, what I call a second cigar boom. You know, the first boom was in about 1998, 2000, around then, with the Cigar Aficionado magazine that suddenly made cigar smoking popular.
Yeah.
But then when COVID came and people were at home and furloughed, they were bored, we were still allowed to open, and we had people who hadn't smoked for 20 years starting to smoke again because they were so bored. And people wanted to learn again. We found more younger people, you know, people in the late 20s coming along wanting to try cigars, and I think it was from there that we decided to really expand. Now the shop was in 2 parts. We had the tobacconist side there with a few cigars there. Yeah. Well, I say a few, you know, there was still a lot of cigars.
There was still a lot of cigars, yeah.
And we had giftware here, and I just decided, you know, even though the giftware was quite profitable, we weren't turning over enough with it. So I decided to take out the giftware, refurbish this side of the shop, put in the big humidors. I decided against the walk-in humidor this time because I like to let people browse and not feel pressured. Yeah. And I find this way we can just leave people, and when they want some help, you know, they can call us. So
yeah. So a question that I have been asking some of the retailers that I've met: how do you want people to feel when they come in your store? Because obviously you're in Harrogate, it's a lovely area. You know, you've expanded this area. You don't have a walk-in humidor because you don't want people to feel pressure. So What's the vibe you want people to feel when they come in here?
Well, the most important thing is knowledge. So the staff are well trained. You want everybody to feel so important when they come into the shop. My father always said to me, never judge a book by its cover. So everybody's treated the same when they come in here. We like to give them advice, help, and they appreciate that. And we'll sit down with them, we'll teach them how to cut a cigar, how to light it, cigar etiquette. We have a terrace outside, so we'll sit down, have a cigar with customers. And we get people travelling literally hundreds of miles to come and see us. So I think we have well over 700 different cigars to choose from here.
Yeah, there are plenty, literally from the floor to the ceiling. It's very, very well stocked.
But yeah, sort of educating your customers is important, and so staff training is very important. And it's great that, you know, like Tor have done the trips. We were lucky enough to go to Nicaragua. I was then going to say that, you're reading my mind.
Like the trips, obviously, have they made a big difference for you in terms of your knowledge?
Yes, because prior to that, I'd been to Cuba, I'd been to the Dominican Republic, but only to like 2 different factories. And so to go on the tour and go around 6 different factories and see all the different methods, everybody's got their own way of doing things.
Yeah, of course.
And some are very interesting, like Nick Padermo, you know, the way he makes cigars is completely different.
He has tradition and innovation, doesn't he? You know, he's thinking one step ahead, trying to
incredible.
Change it.
Yeah,
it's great. Okay, so talking about stories of you, since I've been in the shop, I've pointed at 2 quite interesting things around. One being this picture of you over there looking like some sort of mafia boss. You were saying, well, you can tell everyone the story, but your daughter took that photo, didn't she? And is now pride of place in your shop.
Yeah, I forgot to mention we have probably between 6 and 8 cigar events at a local hotel. And we get between 60 and 80 people at each event. And we've got this fantastic community, and so many people have made friends just from coming to our events. And an event a few months ago, I was studying something, having a cigar with a bottle of Italian wine in front of me, and I was unaware my daughter took a photograph. And she made it black and white, and everybody looked at this picture and said, "You've got to get that blown up." She said, "You look like Don Corleone from the Mafia." And so I know it seems a bit vain to have your own picture on the wall, but customers did request it.
I love it.
But yeah, the cigar industry has been very kind to me. Back in 1997, I think it was, I was invited to a cigar event in LA.
Wow.
And I had a cousin who lived in LA, so I rang him up and said, "Can you recommend a hotel?" And he said, "Oh, come and stay with me, James. I'll pick you up at the airport." Now, he was a musician. He used to be in a band called Paul Revere and the Raiders, but I really wasn't aware of what he was up to at this time. So he picked me up at the airport, and he said, "How are you feeling, James?" I said, "A bit tired." I said, "Why, are we partying tonight, Keith?" And he said, "No," he said, "Ringo wants us down at the studio." And I said, "I'm going to meet Ringo." He said, Ringo, Ringo Starr. I said, "I'm going to meet Ringo." He said, "You're going to sing with him?" I said, "I can't sing." He said, "Don't worry, neither can Ringo." So I had a shower, went straight down to the studio, and there was Niels Lofgren there from the Bruce Springsteen band. There was Zach Starkey, Lee Starkey, Barbara Bach, Ringo himself, and a few other celebs that I really didn't know. And so we had to sing, and it was a bit like Live Aid. We got the one-piece headphones on, singing away. And the track I sang the chorus to was called La Di Da. Now, it wasn't until a couple of years later, and somebody said to me, "You do realise that La Di Da is Cockney rhyming slang for cigar?"
See, it was a sign.
So,
it was fate. Well, that's pretty cool. Rubbing with the A-listers because of the cigar world. So going back to the events, you host several events all the time. I know Rosalie's pretty good at organising some events as well with like the women's cigar club. You've got an event coming up, I can see the little leaflet down there, for the Aliva Slow Smoking Championships. So what sort of events do we look forward to this year with you guys?
Oh, this year with so many. We try to share events out amongst each distributor. So, you know, will you be yourself 1 or 2 weeks, then another distributor. So it can be Cuban cigars at one event, it can be New World cigars at another event. We also raise quite a bit of money for charity each year, and we've raised money for the schools in Nicaragua, as you know. We've also supported other charities. And then we're also doing a few events this year where we're going to charity events and doing cigar stands there, you know, the clay shooting day and then another day.
So plenty to look forward to this year.
Oh yeah.
And is there anything coming up for Barber? So you've done this expansion now. Have you got any future development plans for James Barber?
Not at the moment. We're still waiting to see the results of the vapes and tobacco bill, and depending on how that goes, unfortunately we're opposite a school here, and they're talking about licensing tobacconists, which I totally approve of. But when I was down in the House of Lords a few weeks ago, one of the Lords said we're going to hand over the licensing to local authorities, and he said, for instance, if you're opposite a school you might not get a licence.
Oh dear.
So that is a little bit worrying, but if it goes through and we do get the licence, we intend to improve the terrace outside.
Nice.
And make that a bit warmer, a bit more sheltered. We would have liked to have been able to smoke in here and have a lounge, but unfortunately we have residents above and the smoke alarms, so that cancelled that out.
Well, you just spoke about the tobacco bill. Something I have been asking people is, what challenges, good and bad, have you found whilst building your empire here in the cigar industry?
Well, you're always up against legislation, and it's been difficult, but what we're facing now is really bad. You know, if we do get the plain packaging and other things, you know, in Belgium at the moment it's terrible. In Ireland it's not good, you know, having to cover all the bans and things. So I don't know how we'll cope with that. I don't know how distributors are going to cope with it. You know, when you look at all the different size boxes.
I know, it'd be such a shame. Because I don't think, you know, this is my personal view, I don't think this is necessarily drawing, you know, the people that they're trying to avoid, like the kids and that, to smoke cigars. When you look at other products available that aren't cigars, they're so attractive. You know, no kids are coming in here to buy cigars.
Well, particularly now with vaping.
Exactly.
You know, all kids are interested in now is vapes.
Yeah, even non-smokers are taking up just vaping, aren't they? You know, so it's crazy. So you're, like I mentioned before, you're in a really lovely spot in the beautiful Harrogate. How do you feel your store sits within the Harrogate community?
Well, it's great. So here we are in Coldbath Road, which is really a secondary position. We're not in the town centre. And I never wanted to be in the town centre because I feel that it's easier for people to park here. You know, a guy can pull up, just buy his cigars and drive off. He's not having to go pay for car parking. But just down the road here we have a lovely shop called the Brown Trout, which is hunting, shooting and fishing shop.
I saw it coming in,
we do complement each other immensely because particularly during the shooting season, people go there, get the shotgun cartridges, come here and get the cigars. And there's a big shooting community in Harrogate. You know, we're right in the middle of the countryside. And obviously these are quite wealthy people, so they come in here and they'll buy expensive cigars, and a lot of them for each shoot. And so I think Coldbath Road, it's also like a village within Harrogate. We've got quite a few specialist shops here, and I think it was a great move. Obviously we were in Otley before, we were banging the town centre there, much smaller shop originally, then a huge shop, which I eventually sold to a church, to give you an idea of the size of it. But when we relocated to Harrogate, we more than doubled the turnover, because of the wealth in Harrogate as well. And but the people here are lovely. I mean, it was voted the friendliest place in Britain.
Wow.
And people are friendly. You walk down the street and people say good morning to you. And as I said earlier, so many friendships have been made. And on a Saturday, outside here on the terrace, we can have as many as 15, 20 people smoking.
Oh, lovely,
Unfortunately, we have a bar next door, so they can get a beer from the bar.
So you've got shooting shop, you've got a bar, you're sorted on this road,
And it's amazing the people we've got to meet that have just come to the shop. You know, we've had Hollywood actors. Last weekend we had a lady here who's had a top 5 hit in the UK chart. She was a singer. Didn't know her. She introduced herself. So it's just amazing the people that you meet through cigars. It's such a sociable thing. And my customers say, "Oh, I met this guy so and so," and they only met because they were smoking cigars. That's how they got talking and chatting.
It's happened to me a lot at the different events that we see each other at. You know, you've got people there that you'd never imagine. You think, how are you in our industry, or how have you got involved? But it does open up a lot of avenues. I actually got told by a friend who's a big soaps fan when I said I'm coming up to Harrogate. She reckons Emmerdale people around here. Have you had any Emmerdale actors?
Yes, we get a few of the Emmerdale actors in.
Okay, nice. No name dropping, but we know that this is Emmerdale actor's favourite tobacconist. Well, thank you for taking the time to speak to me today, James.
You're welcome, Kelly.
Look forward to seeing how you get on with your store and your developments and things like that, and your events this year, but I'm sure we'll see each other several times at different places. Thank you.